Moving from a low-scoring Big Ten West to a much higher-scoring Big 12, we have TCU on the road at Oklahoma. The Sooners are 10-point home favorites at time of recording, and this carries an over-under of 63.5 points. It kicks off Friday at noon Eastern on Fox. This opened at Oklahoma minus 12.5, but TCU actually took quite a bit of money here. It got to as low as minus 9.5 before Oklahoma took some movement back. It's an interesting setup here on both sides. TCU is one win away from bowl eligibility, but it's also a must-win if Oklahoma wants to make Arlington in the Big 12 championship game. Now, I'm not even going to get into the Big 12 tiebreakers. They said there's like 120. There's as many tiebreakers as there are FBS teams from like 2018. So it's ridiculous. Like 128 of them, I think that they said there were 125 or whatever. But for OU, it's quite simple. You beat TCU and you hope Oklahoma State loses to BYU and you're it. Is that likely? I don't think so. But either way, quarterback Dillon Gabriel, big news here. You need to keep an eye on this. He's hopeful to play this week. I don't know if the market's all that convinced he is because TCU's taking a ton of money here. There's a huge swing in expectations if he does not play. The backup, 5-star Jackson Arnold. He only played in cleanup duty so far this year in blowouts, but he's a very talented kid. 10th overall recruit in the 2023 class, the 4th-ranked quarterback. I mean, he was up there with Dante Moore. So the reason we haven't heard about him is because Oklahoma already had Dillon Gabriel in place to be their starting quarterback. Jackson Arnold, quite talented himself. There's another injury receiver, Jaleel Farouk, who I think is their best athlete. He's not their biggest producer out wide, but I do think he's one of their better playmakers. He's also optimistic to play. If both of them play, this is a much different game. I'm going to assume that they are, based on the reports and rumors I've seen on Twitter, although, again, early market movement suggests maybe not. However, this isn't a game that TCU typically plays well in. They did kick an Oklahoma team last year that was down, where at the time they were quote-unquote ranked 18th. You know, we ended up knowing what they were in hindsight, but that was kind of TCU's announcement to the college football world in 2022, hey, we're a good team. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it's like, holy cow, because they beat them 55-22. Looking back on it, it's like, of course they beat them 55-22. We know what that Oklahoma team was. But TCU has not won in Norman since 2005. And to be honest, the games really typically aren't all that close. This is a one-sided affair here in favor of Oklahoma. To be honest, I think TCU is a bit overrated. The way that I do my power ratings is I take aggregates. Kelly, yours are involved. SP Plus, FEI, like all these different ones that I aggregate together. And then after that, I'll go in and manually adjust for injuries, for expectations. And Kelly, TCU is a team I actually went in and manually derated. I don't think that they are as good as their power rating says. I don't trust their quarterback against halfway decent competition. They did take care of business against Baylor. Even though that's a rivalry, Baylor's in full quit mode. Let's say it how it is. They thrashed a team that put half an effort out on a football field. Oklahoma actually was outgained by BYU. They needed a fourth quarter score to win. It's a little bit concerning to me. They did allow Aiden Robbins, who's been extremely inefficient on the ground. I mean, the whole BYU offense has been terrible on the ground. And he rushed for 182 yards. So maybe a little bit of fraudulent with this Oklahoma team, specifically on defense, where they're able to kind of set the tone early, and they've clearly regressed since the beginning of the year. But my problem is with quarterback Josh Hoover. He's throwing the ball way too damn much. I've said this at the start. I've been talking about this the whole time. They're giving them football too much. He's a talented-ish kid, but he's not lighting the world on fire, and TCU's not better for it, especially on their offense. I don't trust their offensive staff to call a competent game whatsoever. They're atrocious in the red zone, and they're really bad in short yardage. So long as Dillon Gabriel is good to go, this is Oklahoma with the points for me. What say you?
Be honest, Brett. You got a couple burner accounts out there on X, on Twitter?
I should consider.
Somebody, you said you manually downgrade TCU. Somebodies, I should say, there's a few of them that have like 3 or 4 followers or follow with 3 or 4 accounts. Almost every week, they're like, why is TCU still in your top 30 of your power ratings? It's like, why are we talking about TCU right now? Like, why is that the one that I feel like every week 1 or 2 accounts spouts off about? So anyway, I get what you're saying. Other people feel the same way, even though it's you with the burners, I know. I agree with you here, Brett. The model, I've got Oklahoma minus 14.5. It's an 85% win expectancy. By my numbers, Oklahoma's actually the best team in the Big 12, like from a power rating standpoint. But the Sooners only have a 23% chance to make it to Arlington due to those tiebreakers you talked about. In their case, it's namely the head-to-head loss in Bedlam that could potentially hold them back here in a lot of these scenarios. A quick aside with all these tiebreakers, I think I'm going to do this. I work in a conference office. I think for college athletics, I think people that have listened to the show know that by now. I think I'm going to send a couple emails off to my colleagues that work in other conference offices that do sponsor football, because I have some ideas about tiebreakers that, not for like right now, obviously they're in the midst of it. I know when things happen and when changes can be made, but like I have some ideas that I think are mathematically sound and could create a little bit less confusion and outrage. Now, people are always going to be upset if their team ends up on the wrong side of a tiebreaker. Like, I get that. But I think I'm going to send some emails here in January or February to some folks and see what they say. And they might not respond. They might say, Kelly, thanks, but get out of here with that. I don't know, man. I think we can do better on the tiebreaker front. And this isn't a shot at the Big 12. There's other conferences too. We're going to talk about some of those as well later. I just think we can do better in tiebreakers, and it's a very important thing that we need to be getting right, and I'm not sure that our current approach gets it right. So anyway, back to this game. Oklahoma's offense has been top 10 all season. It's currently ranked number 7. The defense is also top 20. That gives the Sooners the edge on both sides of the ball. Plus, this game's in Norman, as we talked about here earlier. So TCU, Brett, they were a positive outlier in 2022. What I mean by that is they were my number one overachieving team. They overachieved realistic expectations, preseason realistic expectations, by an absurd amount. I mean, it was like 5 or almost 6 games that they won more in the regular season than I projected. It was unbelievable. A great year for Sonny Dykes. Just a fantastic story. This year, the pendulum has swung all the way to the other side. The Horned Frogs, I mean, they're almost a negative outlier this year. They are now a top 10 underachiever with regard to regular season, preseason win-loss expectations. So my numbers assigned in the preseason a 95% chance for TCU to go bowling. That number now, all the way down to what is their chance to win this game, it's 15%. They need to pull off an upset on the road just to reach 6 wins. It really is crazy for a program that played in a national championship game not even 11 months ago at this point. So there's a lot to think about here, a lot to consider for TCU. Was last year just a lightning in the bottle? Is this year the regression way past the mean? We'll find out a bit more about this program in 2024. But it was definitely an interesting swing last year to this. Bottom line, Oklahoma minus 14.5. It's a 15% chance, as I said, that TCU makes it back-to-back wins against the Sooners, Brett, for the first time ever in this series. This will be the 24th time they've played. They've never won 2 in a row.
If only they would have beaten Colorado in week 1.
Dude, it's like, yeah. And you think about if they would have played that game later in the year, does TCU win it? I mean,
yes.
It's just it's so interesting. But that right there, what we just said, is why for my most deserving rankings, I think it's a valuable approach. It's a merit-based approach to say you're going to get credit for your opponent's power rating at the time of the game or currently, whichever one's greater. Some people didn't like when they found out that that's how I approached this. I took some heat on it about it on Twitter, and I said, guys, listen, there's all sorts of examples. This is a good one where teams get better, teams get worse. But when you say that, you're implying, whether you mean to or not, that at one point they were either better or worse than they are at this point. You shouldn't devalue the meaning of a win for a team early in the year, because for all we know, a team's season got derailed because I beat them. Like, if we didn't play early and I didn't beat them, they'd be having a better year. Like, we don't know how that plays out. That's why I do what I do with the most deserving. At the end of the day, it doesn't change things too much, but I do think it's in the best interest of accuracy to capture what the true meaning of a resume is. So anyway, that's another aside. We got way too many big games to talk about, and I keep going on a tangent, so I'm sorry. Let's keep it moving.